Hello students, welcome to the series on entrepreneurship. Today we are going to study cultural entrepreneurship and international entrepreneurship. Now let us study the objective of this chapter. The basic objective is to study the concept of cultural and international entrepreneurship and the issues and challenges associated with it. We will also study the impact of entrepreneurship on society. So, in this chapter we are going to cover two concepts, that is of the cultural entrepreneurship and international entrepreneurship. First we are going to study cultural and then we will cover international. Let us study the concept of cultural entrepreneurship. Cultural entrepreneurship refers to the process of creation of high cultural products like museums, opera houses, symphony halls and theatres. These cultural institutes for building commercial and popular culture industry. Now, culture has become very popular as a product to be consumed by masses. People have started taking interest in collecting and in participating for live performances, for which they are ready to pay a certain amount of money. It is a source of creation and it is also a source of entertainment. That is, people get lot of satisfaction when they connect to culture and to the values of their indigenous societies. Now, let us study the art of recombination. The cultural products are created on the basis of creative ideas for designing valuable arts, where these non-material goods are used by mass consumers for intrinsic satisfaction as a source of entertainment. The art of recombination extends to moral, cultural and social organizations also. We have cultural organizations which are promoting cultural products, but we have social and NGOs also who are looking into the preservation and the conservation of art and culture. The art and culture as a popular form of product is spreading and is a source of revenue for many people. So, this is also emerging as an industry where entrepreneurs are investing money to mobilize the concepts, to give a concept of earning for people. Now, let us study the basic forms of cultural products. The basic forms of cultural products are world fairs, the travelling artist, the film festivals, the national, region and local events, the visual art theatre products, the music and dance performances. So, these are the various forms of cultural products which when are performed, people are ready to invest, that is people are buying tickets, people are going to other destinations to participate, that is the tourism industry is growing because of these performances and is a great churner of money. So, people are investing, they are getting funds from government, they are getting loans from the banks, they are also investing money, the sponsors are ready to invest money. So, this is emerging as an industry where there are a lot of opportunities to connect and grow. Now, let us study the characteristics of cultural entrepreneurship. Cultural entrepreneurship helps in creating stories for the acquisition of resources. The cultural entrepreneurship is a distributed process. The cultural products include diverse and discordant aspirations of people. The artifacts and materially articles play a critical role in shaping or expressing beautiful emotions. Now, art is connected to emotions because it is the expression of the feelings of the artist who is involved in collecting or who is involved in making that art form to its ultimate form of specialization and perfection. It can be a live performance, it can be a practice of artist, or it can be a time and commitment which the artist has given to recombine the various emotions and the feelings, or they are combining the eras, they are collecting things from various destinations. So, this is a kind of a product which is very diverse and which is very intangible, that is people can feel it and can understand it and connect it by heart. Now, let us study the methods of building and creating cultural products. First method is crowdfunding. The audience members can become the investors, customers and suppliers at different points for creating and designing cultural products. Cultural entrepreneurship is an intertemporal process. Cultural entrepreneurship is an ongoing process affected by implicated actors, artifacts and events which unfold over time. So, what are the methods? Crowdfunding is, that is, there is a community or a group of people who are interested. They collect, they get the sponsors, they themselves become the creators, they themselves become the performance. The best ideas can be generated in temples, in churches and in institutions which are connected socially for the upliftment of the people. So, these institutions try to organize and preserve the values which are locally promoted. Cultural entrepreneurship is a diverse and a continuous process, that is, there is a lot of effort and time which has to be invested to promote this kind of product in market. Efforts of cultural entrepreneurs. The cultural entrepreneurs continually make and recreate stories to maintain their identity and status in the market. The entrepreneurs can design new paths by going back to connect with the future. The project narratives, they are constrained by the past events. Now, the cultural entrepreneurs who are investing time and are trying to earn their livelihood try to create a narrative or a story of their emotions and create the identity by building something which is unique and indigenous to their own personality. The performance is very near to the artist's upbringing and his devotion which is put into to build that practice. So, these events are very specialized and these activities have lot of commitment of artists, and that is why the audiences get attractive. Most of the artists get work if they connect with their past narration, that is, your past performances build your identity and status in the market. Now is the performative cultural entrepreneurship. The past events can also re-narrate with the construct of time. The concept of cultural entrepreneurship is itself performative, where people are attracted to live performances and pay heavy amount of money. So, performative art is when the artist tries to give his performance through music or through dance or through any other act which makes audiences to connect. So, the audiences can pay any amount of money for artists who have invested their life and who have given their time and their personality for shaping this kind of culture. So, cultural activities basically are part of society. They help to connect people, they help to bring communities for good things, they give you positive emotions, they try to preserve the culture, they try to preserve the values of the people so that they can dance and dine together. Performative art is one form which is being sold at heavy rates in the market. Now, impact of change agents and resourceful people. Change agents and resourceful people who mobilize cultural, social and human capital generate revenue from cultural events. There are high culture organizations who design popular cultural products to preserve and conserve art. The creation of an organizational base through investment is needed to collect various art forms. Now, there are change agents in market who are heavy investors, that is, they are the pioneers of the industry. There are international organizations and there are international funded bodies who are working on behalf of government and community supporters also. There are multinational companies who are investing and promoting art as a form of product. There is one big company in London, Sotheby's, who is basically an art collector. They auction art, they collect art from various international destinations and they give the status and they give identification to the artist for their valuable work done. The piece of art as a painting or as a statue or a sculpture is now used not only in terms of giving satisfaction to the people, but is also used as a kind of a architectural style for designing their lifestyles. So, art as an industry is emerging and giving options to people to invest and grow. Now, let us study international entrepreneurship. Now, first we are going to study the concept of international entrepreneurship. International entrepreneurship is defined as development of international new ventures or startups that from the inception are engaged in international business. The operational domain is international in form of exports or imports. They can also work in alliances with foreign companies. Now, what is international entrepreneurship? Here the organizations, they are involved in exports or imports or are directly connected with other foreign companies. They start with joint ventures or they become suppliers to international companies. So, that is the startup organizations who have international connections or who are cashing on international opportunities are known as international entrepreneurs. Now, the process of international business. International entrepreneurship is the process of an entrepreneur for conducting business activity across the national boundaries. It may consist of exporting, licensing or opening sales office in another country. So, international entrepreneurship is to get connections in the global world so as to increase the business and options for growth and development of people in the domestic regions. That is, people are operating beyond the national boundaries to increase their business potential. Now, let us study the advantages of international entrepreneurship. Companies which are incurring high level of fixed costs can be reduced, the labor cost can be reduced and the sales can be high in foreign markets. Now, the global world is distributed in terms where there is low labor cost in some destinations and high resources in other destinations. There are capital intensive industries in most of the developed and advanced countries, but they get the cheap labor in Indonesia, Bangladesh and India. So, they can utilize this resource base and try to make products which are at low cost. So, the total market can be benefited because the cost can be controlled and the markets can get employment. The funds can move from one destination to another. So, this can give a kind of a balancing act for connecting the developing and the developed markets. The sales can increase and this can enhance the standards of living of people all over the world. Advantages of international entrepreneurship also relate to the globalization of customers, that is, they are purchasing foreign brand products and expansion of domestic markets, that is, international business causes domestic market to expand beyond national boundaries. Globalization of customers is that most of the customers are learning to use the foreign products also. They are updating their skills and the options to use technology as a part and parcel of their lifestyle, because most of the high technological intensive products in terms of heavy gadgets and laptops and mobiles are imported from foreign countries, which is making life of people in developing countries comfortable. So, most of the customers, even if they are living in less advanced destinations or they are living in rural backgrounds, can access to high technical products because the goods can be sold in these destinations to increase the options of sales. Customers have become globalized. The domestic markets are expanding, that is, if the product is overproduced in one market, it can be exported to the other markets and the revenues can be earned because there is some consumer in foreign market who is demanding this product. Importance of international entrepreneurship. There is growth opportunity, that is, there is option for expansion and diversification of business. The utilization of talent and managerial competence can increase. There is advantage of cheap labor, that is, the quantity and quality of labor is one of the major challenge for every business. Now, when you expand or you work with international markets, obviously the talent availability would be more diverse. You will get people from all spheres of life with all levels of talent, that is the technical aspects, and even if you want mass talent, that is you want general people, you can get from destinations other which are rural based. So, you can balance the recruitment of people, you can cash on the cost option, that is you can lower the cost, and you can always expand the business because the opportunity for growth and development is high when you cross the national boundaries. Now, let us study the globalization of competitors. Globalization of competitors motivates companies to face competition from global entrants in markets for pursuing global scale efficiency. Now, because we are working in international markets and uh, people from foreign countries are working over here, they are selling their products. Because of liberalization, the foreign products have entered the national markets also. So, the indigenous companies who are working, they are facing competition. They are also upscaling their product, they are also increasing their efficiency, and they are trying to come up with the standards of the international products. So, most of the companies who are now coming up with their startups, or they are coming up with their products, are matching with the international competition, because the product basically has to deal with the professionalism aspects. So, people are working on these aspects also. Globalization of competition has helped people to streamline the cost, improve the operation and efficiency to give the best valuable service to the customer. Now, international entrepreneurship is impacted by economic environments. Let us study what is economic environment. The economic system consists of information about the economics of other countries, like the currency rate, the phase of business cycle and the financial policies. Now, when international entrepreneurs work in global markets, whether they are exporters, even they are working in national boundaries, they need to understand what is the currency exchange, that is the international exchange rate, or your value of currency in relation to dollar has to be estimated in order to balance your profits. You have to understand what is the phase of cycle which is moving in the other countries, that is a recession or a boom of foreign countries would also impact the businesses in the domestic markets. Maybe the domestic market is stable, but international churns of movement of cycles do impact the growth of business. The policies of the other governments also put a very big impact in the sale and the purchase of goods and services. It depends what are the indigenous visa problems, what are the indigenous problems of the government, which products are being promoted in foreign markets, what are the entry barriers, and where the government is needing things to promote their countries. So, this all international environment in terms of economics has to be studied before people enter into entrepreneurship. Now, let us study the technological environment impacting entrepreneurship. The business depends on skills and abilities of the entrepreneurs, that is the technological variations and time of implementation. The updating of technology is important, and the strength of technological networks. Your business basically depends on what social platforms you are working, what is the kind of gadgets and the internet access and the speed with which you are working. Because if you are connecting to the global markets, the access to the international data through softwares is only possible if you have a proper bandwidth and proper gadgets to connect. So, the skills and the ability of the people have to be technical in order to work at international forums and connect to the suppliers or connect to the international associations. Now, let us study the cultural sensitivity which is impacting international entrepreneurship. The cultural sensitivity is the entrepreneurs operating at national levels should also understand the cultural issues of the international countries and also the management of the cultural diversity of the employees. Now, many people, because if they are working with foreign markets, they need to understand their festivals, they need to understand their local options where they are trying to do business with their taste and the preferences. So, their ideas of designs and their ideas of patroning also has to be understood. The domestic entrepreneurs also have to design goods according to the taste and the preferences of the international markets. The MNCs and the foreign companies and even international entrepreneurs have to understand to deal with employees because of the cultural diversity, which can be a big issue to handle people in a sensitive way. Now, let us study the political and legal environment. The political and the legal environment consists of the politics and the laws, the policy regulation. The politics is basically the stability of government in any other country. The change of the government can put a change in the policies. Like if the American government changes, it would issue changes relating to the industrial options also, like which industries are more prone to taxation or which industries need talent from which countries. Like a very big issue of H1 visa for employment because of the American destination has changed the way people are doing business with foreign countries. So, the cost and the distribution of investment in foreign markets depends on the policies and the impact of the government which is governing the issues of business in other nations also. Now, let us study the government policy. The government policy, that is, the entrepreneur is going for internationalization of business, they have to study the domestic as well as international policy. The restrictions are laid in home country for export of goods, they affect the trade of entrepreneur, and restriction in host country on entering of new entrepreneurs hinders their growth. Now, government policy is a very big impact on the workmanship of the entrepreneurs, because when they work with products they need to understand what is the impact of policy on their product promotion. If you are working with very basic product and the product is shot in the domestic country, it will be banned for exports. Like pulses, because they are not manufactured in a large scale in India, they are banned for exports because you have to look after the needs of the local markets. We cannot make the customers deny for the products which are produced over here. So, first you have to fulfill with the domestic demand and then you can go for exports. So, we need to study what are the products which are being promoted by government for export and what are the products on which there are restrictions. And even when you are going for international business, you have to see that the other government is putting restrictions on import, because they also want that their domestic entrepreneurs should grow. They are putting restrictions which are prone or which are anti against the foreign investors. So, we have to see what is the kind of the patronage and the policy of the foreign governments for your specific products, and then according to that specifications we need to design a products which are accepted and which are being promoted by the domestic and international governments. Now, let us study the non-tariff barriers. The non-tariff barriers, they are the obstacles to imports other than the tariffs, such as the testing impositions, the certification impositions, the bureaucratic hurdles, the administrative measures to discriminate against foreign goods. Now, even if you are in food industry or you are in electronics or in other industries also, they require high standards for testing and certification, because these products should not harm the safety and the body and the health of the customers. So, it is with the pharmaceutical industries and other very technical industries that the certification process is very difficult. So, these are the kinds of the barriers which are imposed on entrepreneurs, where they have to study in detail and they have to make the product very professional before entering the foreign market. Now, let us study the tariff barriers. The tariff barriers, they are the duty levied by government on imports. It is imposing tariff, raises price of imported goods, and the high cost is less attractive to consumers. Sometimes the government is imposing high taxes on imports. So, when we are importing goods and you have to pay high custom duty, so it will increase the cost of production, and if the product is very costly, it will be less attractive for the consumers. They are going to search for substitutes which are domestically available. So, this is done by major governments all over the world so as to promote their own products and protect their products from foreign inclusions. So, these are the barriers which the international entrepreneurs before entering the business needs to study and needs to decide how they are going to design the products by mobilizing the limited options and the opportunities which they have. The cultural barriers relate to the language, the education, the tradition, the religion, the values of citizens. You have to understand the mindset of the foreign customers, the taste and preferences of customers in the market. It is difficult to work in foreign markets because the problems of languages restrict people to communicate with the suppliers and with the customers. The labeling, the designing of the products also becomes difficult because you need translators and you need the local help of those people in the destinations to make your products being acceptable. The cultural diversity is immensely a barrier to understand the taste, the ideas and the mindsets of the customers. Now, let us study the summary of this lecture. The cultural and international entrepreneurship is important for the economy to generate revenues. The global connections can improve options and opportunities for doing good business. The power of entrepreneurs can be increased as they can access vast pool of knowledge and opportunities. So, these both concepts are important. The cultural entrepreneurship is also a form of international connection, and international entrepreneurship is also a way of expanding your markets to the global world. I hope the students must have understood the concept of cultural and international entrepreneurship. Thank you, students.